The outer rim of the galaxy was a place of endless stars and uncharted danger. It had always been a frontier, a region where fleets clashed and warlords tested their fleets against one another for territory, resources, and influence. For decades, the Dominion and the Coalition had been locked in a cold, calculated war, with each side claiming victories and suffering losses, yet neither gaining an edge that could end the conflict. In the midst of this familiar struggle, strange reports began to appear. Scouts and reconnaissance drones sent back data that seemed impossible. Ships that moved faster than known warp protocols, shields that adapted instantly to weapon fire, and maneuvers that conventional strategy. At first, commanders dismissed these reports as sensor errors or exaggerations. But the rumors persisted, and with each passing week, the stories became more detailed and more unsettling. "They call it the Aegis of Saul," one officer said, rubbing a clawed hand across the command table. "A single ship, no more than a dozen crew, they say, yet it moves like an entire fleet." The room went quiet. The Council of Commanders, composed of veterans who had survived countless campaigns, found themselves listening with a mixture of disbelief and unease. Nothing in the history of the galaxy suggested that a single vessel could rival the combined firepower of even a minor fleet. "And it's human," another officer added, disbelief creeping into his voice. "They say the humans built it, one ship, and yet—" His voice trailed off. The data on the table showed entire squadrons of fighters reduced to debris within moments of contact with the human ship. In the Coalition, the reaction was similar. Analysts pored over every fragment of intelligence recovered from skirmishes, trying to find patterns, weaknesses, anything that could explain the phenomenon. But every report contradicted the last. The humans did not behave like any species they had encountered before. They were unpredictable, they were fast, they were effective. Captain of the human vessel remained unaware of the stir she had caused across the galaxy. From her perspective, this was simply another mission: reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, and testing the limits of her ship and crew. She moved her hands across the control interface with calm precision, issuing commands that flowed seamlessly between voice, thought, and AI-assisted guidance. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple fleet signatures, Captain," Lieutenant reported, his tone neutral but sharp. "And elements are converging in Sector 47. Be there on high alert." His eyes flicked to the holographic display hovering above the command deck. Colored dots shifted and pulsed, each representing a ship, a squadron, a force moving across the void. The humans had far fewer numbers, yet every movement was calculated to maximize efficiency, to anticipate enemy reactions, and to exploit weaknesses. "Let them come," said quietly. There was no arrogance in her voice, only certainty. "We'll observe, we'll adapt, we'll protect our allies." Back in the alien fleets, tension began to mount. Reports of the humans, unusual tactics spread from ship to ship, fleet to fleet. Entire squadrons hesitated before engaging, unsure how to confront something that seemed capable of predicting their every move. Rumors evolved quickly. Humans were said to move faster than thought, strike with precision no weapon could match, and evade attacks as though the stars themselves were guiding them. In isolated sectors, planetary populations watched from orbiting satellites as a single human vessel crossed war zones with ease. Some whispered fearfully, some with awe. Children on mining colonies imagined humans as legendary heroes from stories, while elders recalled the countless times entire fleets had been obliterated by stronger, more numerous enemies. Yet here was a force that did not fit any known pattern. Even within the Dominion and the Coalition, divisions began to form. Analysts argued that the humans must have weaknesses, that no species could be so perfect. Others, more cautious, suggested retreat, careful observation, and reevaluation of strategy. A silent tension gripped the galaxy, one that was palpable even across light years of empty space. And all the while, the Aegis of Saul sailed onward, unseen by most, unfazed by fear and rumor. The humans' mission was not conquest, nor was it destruction. It was survival, exploration, and protection of those who could not defend themselves. But unknowingly, Captain and her crew had become the focus of attention for every corner of the galaxy. Somewhere among the stars, the galaxy began to hold its breath, awaiting the first true test of human ingenuity and power. A test that would not only prove their strength, but also redefine what it meant to be a force to be reckoned with. The void of space stretched endlessly, black and serene, yet alive with the faint hum of distant engines and the glimmer of countless stars. For the humans aboard the Aegis of Sol, it was calm, almost ordinary. But for the alien fleet spread across Sector 47B, the air, or rather the vacuum, was charged with tension. The first contact came suddenly. A fleet of interceptors, sleek and sharp, darted from the shadows of a nearby asteroid belt. They had been dispatched to investigate the humans' movements, confident in their numbers and weapons. Their sensors had detected a single human vessel, seemingly alone, yet they approached without caution. Overconfidence had always been the way. "Captain, multiple hostiles approaching from Vector 49, Lieutenant reported. His voice remained steady, but his eyes flicked to the holographic display with focused intensity. The fleet of ships shimmered red on the screen, converging toward the human's position. Leaned forward, her expression calm. "Status of our shields?" she asked. Optimal replied. "Adaptive energy matrix is at full capacity, weapons ready." The Aegis of Sol moved with effortless grace, a dance of calculated precision. As the first interceptors fired, energy beams arced toward the human ship. In an instant, the Aegis adjusted its shields, bending the energy harmlessly around its hull. The pilots blinked, confused, expecting sparks, explosions, or at least some sign of resistance. There was nothing, only smooth, deliberate maneuvering. Then the humans struck. From concealed turrets and energy arrays, synchronized beams lanced outward. One interceptor disintegrated instantly, reduced to fragments that drifted silently into the void. Another twisted in a futile attempt to escape, only to be caught in a carefully calculated trajectory of concentrated energy. In moments, 3 fighters were gone, and the remainder scattered, unsure of how to respond. The alien pilots called out warnings and directives, but confusion spread faster than their weapons could travel. The humans moved predictably unpredictable, actions based on analysis, intuition, and experience. Each maneuver seemed to anticipate the enemy's next move before it happened. "Unbelievable," one officer muttered over the comm link, speaking to subordinates. "It moves like it knows exactly what we will do before we do it." On the bridge of the Aegis, his hands glided over the control interface. Her voice was calm, issuing commands that flowed seamlessly between crew, AI systems, and ship functions. "Target the closest interceptor and disable engines. Prepare the secondary array for sweep. Maintain optimal shields." The fleet faltered. Every attempt to surround or overwhelm the human ship failed. The Aegis slipped through formations, exploiting gaps with precision. Energy pulses struck exactly where intended, disabling weapons without destroying entire ships. It was a display of efficiency that alien commanders could neither anticipate nor comprehend. Elsewhere, observation drones recorded the battle, transmitting images and data back to the coalition. Analysts on multiple worlds watched, mouths open, as a single human ship dismantled an entire squadron without breaking a sweat. The story that had once been rumor now became undeniable truth. Humans were not only capable, they were extraordinary. Yet did not celebrate. For her, this was a test, a demonstration of skill, not of dominance. She understood that efficiency in battle required more than power. It required discipline, focus, and respect for the unpredictable nature of life in space. Every decision was deliberate, every strike measured. As the last interceptor fled beyond the asteroid belt, the Aegis of Sol remained in position, calm and composed. A message from a terrified commander echoed across encrypted channels. "We cannot understand them. We cannot stop them." In that moment, across the galaxy, a new realization took hold. Humans were not simply another species to be reckoned with. They were a force of ingenuity, courage, and precision that challenged every assumption the galaxy had ever held. A single human vessel, piloted by a few determined minds, had demonstrated a level of power that entire fleets struggled to match. And far from the battlefield, in countless command centers and civilian observation posts, the galaxy went silent for a moment, collectively holding its breath. They were witnessing something unprecedented, the first true proof that humans were not just survivors. They were masters of the battlefield, capable of turning even the most overwhelming odds into opportunity. Turned to her crew, voice calm but firm. This was the first contact. Remember everything you observed. We are not here to conquer. We are here to protect, to understand, and to survive. Let's keep moving. The Aegis of Sol slipped into the shadows of the star systems, leaving behind stunned aliens and a galaxy that would not forget this day. The news of the Aegis of Sol's first encounter traveled faster than light through both the Dominion and the Coalition. Hollow messages flashed across command decks, analysts pored over every frame, and generals debated strategies that suddenly felt inadequate. What had been dismissed as rumor now became undeniable fact. Humans were not only capable, they were exceptional. In the high command, the mood was tense. Officers paced across the bridge of the war flagship's Pride, their clawed hands tapping nervously on consoles. "We've never seen anything like this," Commander admitted, his voice unusually quiet. "A single human ship destroyed 3 of our fastest interceptors with precision we cannot replicate. And they weren't reckless, they were calculating, strategic. Every move anticipated hours before we even acted." His subordinates exchanged uneasy glances. Most were seasoned veterans, hardened by countless battles, but this was different. It wasn't just power, it was unpredictability combined with flawless execution. No fleet formation, no coordinated strike, no overwhelming numbers could guarantee success against humans. In the Coalition, the response was similarly frenzied. Analysts tried to dissect battle data, comparing velocities, shield patterns, and weapon outputs, searching desperately for a flaw. Yet each attempt yielded nothing. The humans' efficiency every known tactical model. Some experts argued that the humans must have weaknesses, hidden somewhere, but those willing to entertain that hope were in the minority. The majority had begun to realize that humans operated on an entirely different level of coordination and ingenuity. Rumors spread like wildfire. On one mining station orbiting a distant gas giant, workers whispered in awe and fear. "They say a single human can take on entire fleets," one said, "and survive." Others nodded solemnly. Across sectors, the same conversations echoed on civilian stations, fleet command decks, and even among alien merchants. Humanity was no longer just another species. Humanity had become a force, a symbol of potential unmatched by any known civilization. Inside the Aegis of Sol, Captain remained unaware of the growing galactic stir. To her crew, this was another mission, another step in exploring unknown sectors and gathering intelligence. They moved with precision, executing complex maneuvers and coordinating with AI systems as though the universe itself followed their direction. But the galaxy's gaze was upon them, and its reaction would soon shape the course of war in ways the humans could not yet foresee. Reports of alien hesitations reached through communications intercepts. Entire fleets had paused mid-engagement, their commanders unsure how to proceed. Some chose retreat, fearing catastrophic loss. Others simply held position, unwilling to risk direct confrontation. The humans' presence alone had created a psychological advantage. Aliens feared the unknown as much as they feared destruction. In a tactical briefing aboard Pride, Commander slammed a clawed fist onto the table. "We cannot underestimate them. They are not just strong, they are clever. They adapt faster than any species we have faced, and they are everywhere yet nowhere. How do you fight something that anticipates every move?" One junior officer, trembling slightly, offered a suggestion. "Perhaps we should engage indirectly, avoid their path, attack elsewhere." Shook his head. "It won't matter. Wherever we turn, they will be there. Their reach may be limited, but their strategy is limitless. We are facing a species that does not fight like we do. They fight like we think, and we think slower." Across the galaxy, the sentiment was growing. Humans were not to be underestimated. From battle stations to civilian observation posts, from analysts to politicians, from fleet commanders to young cadets, all eyes turned to the humans as a new measure of capability and courage. Yet despite the fear and awe surrounding them, the humans themselves remained focused. For Captain and her crew, the mission had not changed. They were explorers and protectors, using skill, creativity, and courage to navigate an unpredictable universe. The reactions of the galaxy were irrelevant to their objectives. though they would soon discover that perception alone could be as powerful as any weapon. By the time the Aegis of Sol slipped silently from Sector 47B, it had left more than wreckage in its wake. It had left the first seeds of doubt, fear, and admiration within the galaxy's most powerful empires. The aliens had begun to understand that humanity was unlike any other species, adaptable, clever, and fearless. They had not only survived their first encounter, they had reshaped the expectations of every commander who had witnessed it. And somewhere in the darkness of uncharted space, Captain glanced at the ahead. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "There's much more to learn, and we are ready for it." The galaxy was silent for a moment, holding its breath. Then, slowly, that silence grew into awe, a quiet, profound recognition that a new force had arrived. Humanity had made its first mark, and nothing would ever be the same. The Aegis of Sol glided silently through the nebula-strewn void, a solitary silhouette against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside, the human crew moved with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Every station was manned, every sensor monitored, and every system balanced between automation and human judgment. To an outsider, the crew's coordination appeared almost choreographed, yet it was entirely organic, an instinctive synergy honed over years of training and experience. Captain stood at the command console, eyes fixed on the holographic display that projected the positions of nearby fleets. Her expression was calm, almost serene, but beneath that tranquility was a mind constantly analyzing, calculating, and anticipating. "Lieutenant," she said, voice even and steady, "what are the vectors of the incoming scouts?" "3 small clusters approaching from Vector 7-1, Captain," replied. "They appear to be probing for weak points in our shields, standard reconnaissance behavior." Nodded. "Adjust our course slightly. Draw them closer but maintain distance. Keep the adaptive shields in stealth mode and prepare the countermeasure array. I want to see how they react to pressure." The crew executed her commands without hesitation. Energy pulses hummed through the ship as shields subtly shifted, weapons aligned with invisible precision, and every system synchronized in real time. Unlike alien fleets, which relied on brute force and pre-programmed patterns, humans improvised seamlessly while maintaining coordination. Every movement was purposeful, every decision informed by both intuition and data. As the scouts closed in, the humans began their countermeasures. A series of blinding energy pulses erupted from the Aegis, not to destroy, but to disable. One by one, the alien ships faltered, their engines overloaded, their communication lines scrambled. Panic rippled through the small alien formations. The humans had not only anticipated their approach, they had turned it into an experiment, observing how each reaction would unfold. "Captain," said, his eyes scanning the display, "they're retreating. They didn't expect that level of precision." Allowed a small nod of satisfaction. "Let them go. Our purpose is observation first, defense second. Engagement is a last resort, not a reflex." It was this restraint, this discipline, that distinguished humans from the alien fleets. Where others relied on overwhelming firepower, humans relied on ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. Every engagement was a lesson, every encounter an opportunity to refine strategy. Even in the heat of battle, the humans maintained a code. Protect where possible, minimize unnecessary damage, and never underestimate the universe. Lieutenant, responsible for tactical analysis, spoke up. "Captain, I've noticed a pattern in their evasive maneuvers. If we project it forward, we can anticipate their next formation. They adapt quickly, but they're still predictable within certain parameters." His gaze remained steady on the holographic projection. "Good work. Prepare a non-lethal demonstration. Let them understand our capabilities without unnecessary destruction. It's not only about power, it's about reputation, precision, and communication." As the humans carried out their plan, the alien scouts faltered again, unsure whether to fight or flee. Even in these small encounters, the humans exhibited a level of strategic foresight unmatched across the galaxy. Observers from distant systems could only marvel at reports streamed through hidden channels. The humans were clever, fearless, and disciplined, a combination no other species had achieved. Later in private, addressed her crew. "What we do matters not just in battle but in example. Every move, every decision reflects who we are and what we represent. We are not here to conquer. We are here to learn to protect and to set a standard that others can respect even if they fear it. Remember that. Her words were not motivational fluff. They were a code, a principle that each crew member lived by. Courage without wisdom was reckless. Strength without discipline was meaningless. Adaptability without purpose was dangerous. Humanity's advantage in the galaxy was not just technology or numbers. It was the combination of mind, will, and heart. As the Aegis of Sol continued through the nebula, scanning sectors and gathering intelligence, the humans remained unaware of the growing legend behind them. Across fleets and planets, the story of a single human ship acting with unmatched skill and integrity spread like wildfire. Commanders whispered about humans as if they were more myth than reality, yet the reports were consistent and undeniable. Somewhere deep within the galaxy, an officer muttered to a colleague, watching the reports from the last engagement. If these humans keep moving like this, they won't just change battles. They'll change how we think about war entirely. And so, in the quiet of the void, the Aegis of Sol sailed onward, a living testament to humanity's code. A perfect blend of courage, intelligence, and restraint, shaping the galaxy not through fear alone, but through awe, respect, and the undeniable power of ingenuity. The news of the Aegis of Sol's exploits rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. For the first time, alien fleets that had once operated with confidence now hesitated. Entire sectors fell silent as commanders debated their next moves, unsure if engaging humans directly would lead to victory or disaster. In the Dominion, fleet formation slowed. Orders that had once been executed without question were reconsidered, reviewed, and recalculated. Young officers whispered in astonishment, while seasoned veterans, hardened by decades of warfare, felt unease creeping into their hearts. The humans were small in number, yet their presence changed the psychology of war. Where once brute force had sufficed, now intelligence, adaptability, and anticipation mattered. On the Coalition's command bridge, Admiral slammed a clawed fist onto the console. "They are altering everything," he exclaimed. "Entire fleets are pausing at their approach. Our strategies mean nothing against them." A junior officer hesitated. "Sir, perhaps it is time to avoid direct engagement. We could establish defensive positions and limit exposure." Shook his head. "No, retreat would signal weakness, but we cannot engage blindly. We must understand them first. Their tactics, they are beyond anything we have seen." Meanwhile, the humans moved through contested sectors with purpose. The Aegis of Sol did not seek battle for glory or conquest. Its mission was to protect vulnerable colonies, gather intelligence, and maintain peace where possible. In doing so, the humans became a symbol of hope for planets that had suffered under constant raids and occupation. Civilians watched from orbiting stations as a single human ship escorted convoys safely past enemy patrols, neutralized pirate factions with precision, and avoided unnecessary destruction. On a small agricultural world on the outer rim, settlers cheered as human scouts dismantled a blockading force with minimal damage. Children pointed skyward, imagining heroes in silver ships, while adults whispered prayers of gratitude. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out repeatedly. Humans were not just fighters, they were guardians, proving that courage, intelligence, and discipline could achieve more than sheer firepower ever could. Back on the Aegis of Sol, Captain observed the reports with quiet satisfaction. "Every action we take leaves an impression," she said to her crew. "We are showing the galaxy that strength is not only measured in weapons, but in creativity, restraint, and purpose. Our goal is not to dominate, it is to inspire respect and maintain balance." Lieutenant nodded. "We've been effective at disrupting enemy maneuvers without unnecessary conflict. It's a pattern they haven't seen before." "That's the point," replied. "Let them understand that humans do not fight recklessly. We adapt, we learn, and we protect. That is our strength." Alien commanders grew increasingly wary. Fleet movements became slower, more cautious, as if the mere possibility of encountering humans demanded consideration. Entire campaigns were delayed while war councils debated strategies that could withstand human ingenuity. Fleets that once operated like well-oiled machines were now hesitant, fearing that even a small miscalculation could lead to catastrophic losses. Whispers of awe spread through alien populations. Stories of the human ship's precision, adaptability, and restraint traveled faster than actual battles. The humans had achieved something that no fleet or empire had anticipated, a psychological advantage that extended across light years. For the first time in generations, the balance of power in the galaxy was influenced not only by numbers or technology, but by reputation and example. And through it all, the humans themselves remained focused on the mission. They did not seek fame or recognition. They did not manipulate perception. They simply acted with the principles that had guided them since leaving Earth. Courage tempered by intelligence, strength guided by ethics, and ingenuity applied with purpose. As the Aegis of Sol prepared to enter a new sector, it left behind a galaxy fundamentally altered. Commanders reconsidered every plan, every fleet formation, and every strategy. Civilian populations whispered stories of human bravery. And somewhere in the council chambers of the Dominion and the Coalition, a quiet realization settled in. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had become a force that no one could ignore. For Captain and her crew, the mission continued. The humans moved forward not as conquerors, but as protectors, explorers, and examples of what could be achieved when skill, courage, and discipline worked together. The galaxy watched, silent and awestruck, as humanity's presence shifted the tide, not through destruction, but through ingenuity, courage, and unwavering resolve. The Aegis of Sol entered a sector bathed in the cold light of distant stars, the space ahead crowded with debris from previous skirmishes. At the center of it all loomed the Dominion's flagship, the Dread Sovereign, a massive warship feared across the galaxy. It was more than just a vessel. It was a fortress in motion, bristling with turrets, shields, and hundreds of smaller fighter craft. Entire fleets had been annihilated attempting to engage it. Yet for the humans aboard the Aegis, this was simply another mission. Captain studied the projection of the flagship, noting its weapon arrays, shield patterns, and flight trajectory. Unlike alien commanders who relied on overwhelming force and intimidation, focused on understanding, predicting, and adapting. "Lieutenant," she said, her voice calm, "give me a complete analysis of shield harmonics. Prepare our countermeasures for rapid deployment. I don't want to destroy them, only disable and observe." Nodded, working swiftly. The Aegis shifted position with quiet elegance, weaving through the debris while scanning the massive ship. Every movement was precise, every decision intentional. The humans did not rush. They studied. They waited. From the flagship, alarms blared. Officers barked orders, directing waves of fighters and energy volleys toward the lone human ship. "Engage and destroy," a commanding voice boomed. But as the first attack waves reached the Aegis, they were met with the impossible. Shields that adjusted instantaneously, energy pulses redirected harmlessly into the void, and the human ship moving as though it anticipated every strike. The flagship unleashed a barrage of concentrated plasma beams, each capable of obliterating smaller ships. The Aegis twisted and rolled with an almost instinctive grace, the energy streams flowing harmlessly past as the ship's hull shone with adaptive brilliance. Observers in distant fleets transmitted the images in disbelief. One human vessel, alone, navigating a storm of fire designed to destroy entire squadrons. Then the humans struck, not recklessly, but with precision. Coordinated pulses targeted critical points in the flagship's energy matrix, disabling secondary systems while leaving primary engines untouched. Fighter bays jammed, weapons arrays overloaded, and communications scrambled. The Dread Sovereign staggered, its crew struggling to understand how a single ship could achieve such control over a vessel more than 10 times its size. "Captain, shields holding, but their secondary weapons are targeting us directly," reported. "Continue with calculated strikes," replied. "Keep moving, maintain distance, observe and adapt." Every engagement demonstrated a fundamental principle of human strategy: adaptability. Unlike alien fleets, which depended on brute strength, numbers, and predictable patterns, humans relied on a combination of observation, instinct, and rapid response. They did not merely survive attacks. They used them to learn, adjust, and turn the enemy's strength against them. From observation posts across multiple sectors, alien commanders could not hide their astonishment. One officer whispered in disbelief, "No single fleet has ever withstood the Dread Sovereign, and yet one human ship has." In the coalition, analysts tried to replicate the humans' tactics, but every simulation failed. The humans were too fast, too precise, too adaptive. As the battle progressed, Captain ordered one final maneuver, a calculated strike against the flagship's auxiliary power conduits. In moments, the mighty Dread Sovereign was rendered immobile, systems offline and fighters grounded. Yet not a single unnecessary life was lost. Humans had neutralized a fortress without excessive destruction. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Across thousands of light years, the realization spread. Humans were unmatched. Their combination of skill, adaptability, courage, and precision was more than technology alone could explain. It was something deeper, an instinctive intelligence coupled with a code of restraint that no other species had mastered. Captain finally spoke to her crew, voice calm but resolute. "This is what we do. We protect, we adapt, we overcome, and we do it without losing ourselves in the process. Remember this lesson. It is why humanity stands apart." As the Aegis of Sol slipped away from the disabled flagship, leaving it drifting silently in the void, alien fleets reconsidered everything they had ever known about warfare. For the first time, entire empires faced the reality that humans were not only clever and brave. They were a force whose very presence could reshape the outcome of battles, campaigns, and even wars. And in the silent aftermath, the galaxy could not help but watch and wonder. Humanity had shown its unmatched power, not through overwhelming numbers, but through ingenuity, courage, and unshakable resolve. The legend of the Aegis of Sol was no longer a rumor. It was a truth that would echo across the stars for generations to come. The galaxy had changed. The presence of the Aegis of Sol was no longer just a rumor whispered among fleet officers. It was a reality acknowledged across entire sectors. From the Dominion to the Coalition, commanders reassessed their strategies, their assumptions, and even their priorities. Humans were not only a military anomaly, they were a symbol of calculated strength, courage, and precision. In the council chambers of the Dominion, tension filled the room. High officers debated furiously, projecting simulations of what might happen should the humans strike again. Some urged retaliation, insisting that a demonstration of overwhelming power could restore confidence. Others, wary of underestimating humanity, advised caution, restraint, and negotiation. "We cannot simply treat them as another fleet," Admiral argued, voice stern but measured. "They are not bound by the same rules as we are. Their strategy, their efficiency, even their restraint, it is something we have never encountered. We risk everything by engaging directly." In the Coalition, the sentiment was similar. Generals and tacticians pored over data from the Aegis's previous engagements, analyzing every movement, every strike, every maneuver. They had expected numbers and firepower to dictate the outcome, yet one human vessel had altered the balance of power entirely. Fleet commanders debated alternative strategies, recognizing that diplomacy, backed by an unshakable reputation for unmatched capability, was now a viable tool. Meanwhile, the humans moved with purpose. Captain and her crew were not conquerors. They did not seek to dominate through fear or intimidation. Instead, their actions were guided by a clear principle: protect the vulnerable, defend what is just, and demonstrate that true strength lies in courage, wisdom, and integrity. As the Aegis of Sol entered a contested system, communications were opened, not as threats but as an invitation to dialogue. Representatives from both the and factions hesitated at first, wary of revealing themselves. Yet the humans' reputation preceded them. Across countless light years, stories of their restraint, precision, and efficiency had spread. Those who had survived encounters knew the humans were formidable, but they were not reckless or cruel. Captain addressed the alien delegates with measured authority. "We are not here to conquer or dictate. We are here to protect, to learn, and to find solutions that benefit all parties. Let us speak openly and honestly without fear. Strength is not only measured in weapons, it is measured in choices, restraint, and the ability to act wisely under pressure." The alien delegates were silent at first, grappling with the contrast between what they expected, threat, aggression, and domination, and what they observed, calm, intelligence, and integrity. Slowly, conversation began. Proposals were exchanged, agreements drafted, and a fragile but meaningful understanding emerged. Back in their own sectors, Alien fleets watched as their leaders engaged in diplomacy they had never anticipated. The human presence had shifted not only strategy, but mindset. Commanders who had once relied solely on overwhelming force began to recognize that cunning, restraint, and creativity could be as decisive as raw firepower. Even in casual conversations, whispers of awe spread among alien populations. "They are not like any species we have known," one officer remarked quietly. "They have strength, yes, but also wisdom. They wield power without cruelty. That is something extraordinary." The humans, meanwhile, continued their mission, protecting vulnerable colonies, monitoring hostile activity, and moving through contested space. The Aegis of Sol became a living example of what humanity represented. Courage paired with restraint, ingenuity paired with ethics, and power tempered by wisdom. They demonstrated that true influence in the galaxy was not achieved through fear alone, but through respect earned by consistent action and ethical choice. By the time the council sessions concluded, treaties and understandings had been reached that would have been impossible just months before. Alien fleets from contested sectors, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement of a new reality. Humans were no ordinary species. They had changed the rules of engagement, and in doing so had opened the door to cooperation, peace, and mutual respect, concepts the galaxy had long forgotten amid endless war. Captain stood at the bridge, observing the stars as the humans prepared to depart. "This is what we can accomplish," she said softly to her crew. "Strength used wisely, courage tempered with judgment, and intelligence paired with integrity. That is why humanity stands apart." The crew nodded in quiet agreement. They understood that battles were not only fought in the void of space, but in the hearts and minds of those who witnessed their actions. Humanity's influence had grown, not through destruction, but through the deliberate demonstration of principle, skill, and unwavering resolve. And across the galaxy, a quiet awe settled in, a recognition that humans were a force to be reckoned with, not for their sheer numbers, but for the wisdom and courage that guided every decision, every maneuver, and every act of restraint. The Aegis of Sol sailed silently through the outer rim, its sleek hull reflecting the faint light of distant stars. The battles, the negotiations, and the demonstrations of human ingenuity were behind them, yet the consequences of their actions stretched across the galaxy. From the Dominion to the Coalition, every corner of known space had begun to recognize a truth that could not be ignored. Humanity was unlike any other species, and the galaxy itself had changed because of them. The ship captain moved among her crew, observing their calm focus. Each officer, each crew member had contributed to the legend that now preceded them. They had acted with courage, precision, and wisdom, not seeking glory or dominance, but simply striving to uphold a standard of excellence that reflected who they were. Their victories were not measured merely in ships disabled or enemies deterred, but in the respect and awe that humanity had inspired across light years. "Captain," Lieutenant said, his voice quiet as he reviewed communications from distant sectors, "we've received messages from multiple worlds. Some are governments, some civilian populations. They're asking for guidance, for protection, even for alliances. Humanity's actions have created hope in places that have long been forgotten." Nodded, "We protect where we can, that is all we can do. But let this also serve as a reminder. Our actions define our reputation. The galaxy does not merely respect power, it respects the way power is used." Across the outer rim, stories of the Aegis of Sol had become legend. Children on remote colonies played games imagining human crews navigating impossible battles. Scientists studied the humans' tactics, not only for military insight, but to understand a species that combined creativity, adaptability, and courage in ways no one thought possible. Leaders of alien fleets held council after council, debating strategy not merely in terms of firepower, but in terms of psychology, ethics, and ingenuity, the traits that humanity had demonstrated consistently. Even the fleets, once locked in bitter conflict, found themselves reconsidering priorities. Treaties were proposed, conflicts deferred, and alliances formed in ways that would have been unthinkable before humanity's presence. Fear had shifted to respect. Doubt had turned to cautious admiration. The humans had achieved something remarkable. Without conquering, without dominating, they had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of strength itself. Stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars stretching endlessly ahead. "Every species has its own path," she said softly. "But humanity's path is not about domination. It is about choice, responsibility, and the courage to act wisely. That is what makes us different. That is what will be remembered." Her words carried weight, not because they were loud, but because they were backed by action. Across the galaxy, humans were becoming a benchmark of possibility. A reminder that even in a vast and dangerous universe, one species could combine intelligence, creativity, and moral integrity to achieve outcomes that seemed impossible. As the Aegis of Sol prepared to depart into uncharted sectors, the crew reflected on what lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, unknown threats, and endless opportunities to make a difference. They did not seek conquest, but they knew that every mission, every decision, every calculated action had the potential to shape history. Humanity had become more than a species. It had become a symbol, a measure of what could be achieved when courage and ingenuity were guided by wisdom and principle. Reports from allied planets and newly contacted civilizations poured in. Humans were seen as protectors, mentors, and partners. Even former adversaries began to reconsider their assumptions about the capabilities and intentions of humanity. Across light years, one fact became undeniable. A single determined species could influence the course of the galaxy, not through fear alone, but through consistent, principled action. Finally, as the Aegis of Sol slipped into the darkness between stars, Captain addressed her crew one last time for the moment. "Remember this," she said, voice steady, carrying across the command deck. "We do not act for fame or power. We act because it is right, because it is necessary, and because it sets an example for those who follow. Let every choice reflect who we are, and let the galaxy know that humanity's courage and wisdom are unmatched." And in that moment, the galaxy seemed to pause. Stars glimmered in silent witness, fleets reconsidered strategy, civilizations debated morality, and the stories of humanity spread even further. The Aegis of Sol had not only survived impossible odds, it had changed the galaxy's understanding of power, strength, and potential. Humanity had left a legacy that could not be erased, a testament to courage guided by wisdom, skill tempered by restraint, and a reminder that even in the vastness of the stars, one determined species could make the galaxy fall silent in awe.